The NBA playoffs may be in full effect, but there are no shortage of off-season rumors already this early in the summer. And so today we're going to be talking about Colin Sexton trade rumors, how much of a surprise it is to me that he is going to be shopped on the open market. However, why it is possible that the Cavaliers may genuinely be interested in trading him, what they may get back, and what teams might be interested, and the fit that he could have on those teams. That is what we're going to be talking about in today's video. If you do like NBA content like this, consider liking the video if you do enjoy it and subscribing to the channel for more NBA content every week. And so let's get right into it. And so, Colin Sexton. Obviously, he's a very good young point guard. He just finished his third year in the league. He is a scorer. There's no doubt about that. The man can score the basketball. He averaged 24 points a night on the season. His three-point shooting is very good. Shot 37% from deep this year. Only 1.6 per game. He's not as high volume of a three-point shooter as some of the younger point guards in the league. Think of someone like Trae Young, most specifically. But he's very good at getting the basket. His mid-range game is quite polished for someone of his age. And he's in that mid-2 in the paint game, that floater game. That's something he possesses as well. He is very versatile at scoring the basketball. But there's two issues that are going to hold out the Cavaliers from wanting to extend Colin Sexton, in my opinion. Firstly, he is a very, very ball-dominant guard, which is fine if you're a two-guard. But primarily, Sexton is not a two-guard. He is a point guard, but he is not a point guard who distributes the ball, who is a playmaker by any stretch of the imagination. He's not quite at the same level, I wouldn't say, in his prime, or quite at the same play style, but I think if I had to give him a comparison, I would compare it to Kemba Walker. He's a scorer. Now, Kemba Walker was a bit more of a playmaker than Colin Sexton is right now, in my opinion. But Kemba Walker, that type of player, just an all-and-out scorer. But Sexton's not quite at that scoring level yet, in my opinion. Stats might say otherwise, but there's more scoring in today's NBA. We can get into that argument in another video. But I think that is going to be one of the main reasons we could see him leave. Secondly, there's money. Money is an issue here. As much as it seems weird, the Cavs are not competitive. You wouldn't think they have money issues. But Taurean Prince, now, he will probably be gone by the time that Colin Sexton's extension kicks in. But at least for next year, he's getting paid $15 million a year. I wouldn't expect he'll be back on that type of money. But at least for the 22-23 season, which is the year that Sexton's extension will come in, they have $29 million on Kevin Love's contract. That's the last year of his deal. They have $10 million of Larry Nance, 7.35 of C.D. Osman, 8.9 for Darius Garland, and they are going to want to extend Darius Garland within that season, and that'll kick in the year after, so that's also consideration. As Okoro, the same a year after that. But the big kicker is that Jarrett Allen is going to get paid this summer as an RFA, and most likely Cleveland are going to have to give him a lot of money because there's going to be teams that give him some big offer sheets, offer some big money. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jarrett Allen get north of $25 million this summer, which I think for a center of his caliber in today's game is just absolutely absurd. And that's no hate on Jarrett Allen. I think Jarrett Allen is a very good center. I think he's a very good two-way center, a lot of future potential, and could potentially be one of the best centers in the league a few years down the road. I just don't think centers should ever be paid that much money unless you're of the Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid type. I just don't think that they're that valuable to a team. Even someone like the likes of Rudy Gobert, I was critical of the Rudy Gobert max signing because of that. But nonetheless, Jarrett Allen will be another video down the road. Jarrett Allen's going to get paid. And so that's going to cause some cap complications for the Cavaliers. They kind of have to start deciding who they want to pay. Garland's going to have to get paid. Okoro's going to have to get paid. Jarrett Allen's going to have to get paid. Sexton's going to have to get paid. They still have Kevin Love's contract for the year when Sexton's contract's going to get kicked in. So money is an issue. Thirdly, the Cleveland Cavaliers are the 5th best odds to get the #1 pick this year. And so they have a high probability to get into the top 4 of this draft. And so with that being said, 3 of the top 4 players in this draft are guards, and they already have Jarrett Allen, so I don't know how likely they are to take Evan Mobley, given the fact that Jarrett Allen is going to be tied down to big money already as of this offseason, and they do really like Jarrett Allen. They're not going to just let him walk for free now as an RFA, so if they are going to part with anyone, it would be Colin Sexton. I think Okoro offers them defense that they need that Sexton and Garland don't quite have, although Garland's defense has shown some upside for sure. Sexton's a bit less. And Garland has shown this season to be much more a playmaker and a true point guard in that respect than Colin Sexton. As much as he is a very good scorer, I think Sexton needs to either adapt to be a 2 or he's going to end up being a sixth man on a really good team as a really good sixth man. I think that's his best role, but he's not a playmaking point guard that's going to generate an offense for you, have good ball movement, and set up other players. It's just not his game. And so this is why I think that we could potentially see Colin Sexton on the way, because it's even more so if the Cavaliers move into that top 4 of the draft and select another guard, then there's no need for them to keep Sexton, Garland, and whoever they draft. And so it makes sense for them to move on to Sexton to try and acquire assets at another position. With that being said, let's go ahead and discuss some of the possible places we could see Colin Sexton traded to. Firstly, I think it's an interesting scenario. New Orleans Pelicans. Lonzo Ball, as we all know, is a restricted free agent this summer, but he is going to take significantly less money than Colin Sexton. Lonzo Ball is probably going to be in the 15 to 17 million range, whereas Colin Sexton is most likely going to be looking for something closer to a max, something I think he is wildly overpriced at. He can score, but he can score. Playmaking lacks, defense lacks. I don't think he's a max contract player. I think he's probably a 20-plus mil player, but he's definitely not a max player. They can get Lonzo Ball for significantly cheaper. Has a little bit more experience, although not really. He has only got a year more of experience. But somebody who can shoot the three still very well, who can be a good option alongside Garland, improves their defense significantly, which is something that they certainly need to do, especially in that backcourt. And replacing Sexton for Lonzo immediately is a very good defensive improvement. He's someone who's a much better passer than Colin Sexton as well. And so they lose that elite top-end scorer, but they improve in the three-point shooting and as far as catch and shoot goes, and they definitely improve their perimeter defense. Another possible offer, not the picks involved in that. Well, I'm just talking about the main pieces of a trade, just to conceptualize. Other option, Chicago Bulls. We see a trade with Lauri Markkanen. I don't know how much interest the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to have in Lauri Markkanen. Nonetheless, Lauri Markkanen is also a free agent. We could see some sign and trades here for sure. Sexton and some free agents. Power forward is something that the Cavaliers are going to need long term. Of course, Kevin Love is there right now, but there's no doubt that Kevin Love is not their long term option. And Larry Nance is also on the roster, but Larry Nance isn't exactly someone you want to build your team around per se as your core piece. He's fine as a fifth best starter, and he brings some very good defense and good energy, some good rebounding. But if they can improve that position, I'm sure they would certainly be willing to. So depending on the interest they have in Lauri Markkanen, that could be a potential trade. Lauri Markkanen's value is going to be interesting to see this year because, again, similar to Porzingis, he's a very tall player who doesn't really like to get in the post and can be inconsistent with his threes. They're a very different type of NBA player from what we've seen in, of course, in recent history. We never saw 7'1", 7'2" guys who only shot threes. That was absolutely unheard of. And now we're dealing with it, and their values on these players is a little bit unknown. So I'm not sure what the interest will be there for the Cavaliers. But from Chicago's standpoint, it gives them a point guard to play alongside Zach LaVine and an upgrade on Kobe White as he can reign the sixth man, and that's something they could be interested in. Some of the other teams we could see him go to could be Boston, see an addition of depth onto this team as potential sixth man and behind Kemba Walker, Brown, Tatum off the bench. I don't think this is likely, given the fact that Boston, have some high payroll as it is right now with Tatum, Brown, and Kemba all on their big deals, and then adding Sexton, who they're going to have to pay, just doesn't make sense. It's another just very good scorer, which is fine, but Boston need depth, and if anything, they want to add a playmaking point guard, definitely not another ball-dominant one. So the fit doesn't really work from Boston, but something that nonetheless is talked about. Another interesting one could be the Dallas Mavericks. Now, again, I think if the Mavericks are going to add a point guard, it's going to be a playmaking one, not a ball-dominant one, because Luka Doncic inevitably is going to be the ball-dominant guy on that team. Nonetheless, they are in the market for a point guard, and they are interested in trading Kristaps Porzingis. That being said, I don't think the Cavaliers are going to be interested in taking on that salary, so I don't think Porzingis gets swapped in that trade. We could see some lesser role players and maybe a Green, the Josh Green who they just took in the first round of last year's draft, and a future pick or so gets sent the other way. But again, I don't think the Mavs are overly interested in a non-playmaking point guard. Potentially the most likely trade destination for Colin Sexton is the New York Knicks, or at least according to New York Knicks fans that really want to acquire Colin Sexton. This would add to a group of Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson if he can return healthy. Nerlens Noel is going to be a free agent this year, but I wouldn't doubt that they are going to be interested in retaining him as a backup, however he may leave. But they would give them a nice young nucleus of players here with Sexton, with RJ Barrett, and of course the emerging, but not as young, Julius Randle to build around. It would add their scoring to give them a clutch, or at least we would suppose, more likely to perform in the clutch, late in game, important scenario guy that Julius Randle has just proven in the playoffs that he cannot do. Potential trades in this, maybe it does involve Mitch Robinson and Nerlens Noel staying. But then, of course, Cleveland have Jarrett Allen, so that isn't of great interest. I think it is more likely here for the Knicks that maybe Ntilikina gets dealt if the Cavaliers want a good defensive point guard off the bench. And outside of that, it's really just going to be some picks. I don't think the Knicks have too much else the Cavs would be interested. Maybe they want to take the shot on Kevin Knox. Maybe they want to try and help his career a little bit and see if they can get him anything out of him as a depth wing. But outside of that, I think it's going to be primarily picks here for the Knicks. Maybe Emmanuel quickly gets dealt the other way with the emergence of Derrick Rose, and they want to see him. Something along those lines, and some picks is something we can see. And I think that's something that definitely makes sense from a Knicks standpoint to improve their ability to just have that clutch score late in games that they've so dearly lacked this season. So that is some of the potential destinations for Colin Sexton. Let me know down below some of the places where you think Colin Sexton could end up, or if you think it is likely he gets dealt at all. As far as if I think he gets dealt, the Cavaliers do not get into the top 4 of the draft, I think it is significantly less likely that he is dealt. However, I think there is still a high probability just due to the cap space. I think they do like Darius Garland long-term as a fit, as a true point guard, better than they do Colin Sexton. I think Issac Okoro's in there as well, and then of course Jarrett Allen. I think that's the 3 on the roster that they like the most right now and wish to retain the most. However, if they do move into the top 4, I would be absolutely shocked if Colin Sexton is still on this roster next season. And so that being said, they move into the top 4, Sexton's gone. They stay in that 5 or 6 spot, you may see him back. But I still wouldn't be surprised to see him traded either. That's my thoughts on the Colin Sexton trade rumors. As I said, let me know your thoughts down below. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed the video and subscribe to the channel to more consistent NBA content, 5 or more times a week. Playoffs, off-season, draft, free agency. We've got so much on the go, so much to come, and lots of content to make. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next one.